And now we move on to our NBA mock draft 2021. The mock draft is next Thursday. We're recording on Thursday night. Who knows when it'll be released at this point, but it'll be before the actual NBA draft. So it was difficult to kind of get this going because not a lot of people are in tune with the NBA draft prospects. This is the reason why Damon isn't here this week because he doesn't know shit about him. Jurg is very, you know your prospects, but you're not polished towards all of them. That's what you told me. And
I've done my research. I locked myself in my war room. I looked at I got a list. I got a board right here. We ready?
Beautiful. Love the preparation. And James, I would say, is the same way. You know, this is kind of like a little bit last minute, but hey, he took on the challenge. To be honest, we told him like if you don't want to do it, that's fine. But he took on the challenge. So James, appreciate you for doing this. We decided to split the picks like we did for the NFL mock draft. So Jurg will have 1, James will have 2, I will have 3, and then Jurg will have 4, James will have 5, I will have 6, and then so on and so on. We keep it brief, you know, since not all of us are educated on it. I think I've done my homework, but I'm pretty sure I am not the most cohesive and well-spoken person, so I'm going to sound the dumbest probably. So, like always, we start off with the best, and by best, I mean Jurg, not the Pistons. Jurg, you have the first pick. Detroit Pistons have the first pick. Who do you got, and why is it not Cade Cunningham? Go ahead.
So I'm not going to spend the whole 5 minutes like they're going to do come draft night itself to
So
milk that
I
TV
hate
time.
that.
Yeah, all about those television dollars and that advertisement money, fellas. For those of you that still somehow not have realized at this point that sports is just all about money. So there we go. So with my number 1 overall pick, I'm not really going to deliberate too much here. James, like even with you who was kind of 50-50 coming into this with your draft prospect knowledge, you already know that this is the best prospect in this draft. The 6'8" kid coming out of Oklahoma State University. You guard/forward. Kid's going to be special in this league. You worry about fit later. You pick him now. Cade Cunningham is going to be my number 1 overall pick by far. Just he kind of brings you everything when it comes to looking at like how good he could be. Just the playmaking, the potential for scoring, even with him. Like I think there's a lot that he could still do to become an even better scorer. And this is a guy who did average a solid 20 at college. He was the Big 12 Rookie and Player of the Year. Like all the intangibles are there for him. Like he is even in a draft class that may not be the strongest, some people have said, like he's the definitive number 1 guy. So Cade Cunningham is my number 1 overall pick by far.
I mean, you can't go wrong. I mean, if he doesn't go number 1, I'd be shocked. I'd put all the money in the world to bet he's going number 1. And, you know, I wouldn't put all the money in the world now I'm thinking about it because it's Detroit and they could mess it up. So
I gave them the blueprint right here. I gave them the blueprint. I'm like, you know what? Here it is, Detroit. Don't waste time. Submit the card as soon as you get it. Like literally, you don't need to deliberate here. You worry about fit later. Yeah, that's all I'm saying. Like if you don't think him and Killian can play, like you just go with someone else. Excuse me, like go with someone else at point guard. You pick Cade. Like come on now.
Okay, no, I agree. The only way the Pistons don't pick him is if they trade out. So yeah. All right, Jurg said all you needed to. Now we move on over to the second pick, which is the Houston Rockets, where James is from. I'm just joking. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. James, you got the Rockets. Talk to me, bud. Who do you got?
all right. Well, at the number 2 pick, which is by the way how I felt coming into this mock draft, I felt like a strong 2 out of 10, but it's all right. After Jurg showed me all his notes, man, it was intimidating. But regardless, Houston Rockets, they need a lot of help everywhere. But they do have some young piece to build off in Christian Wood and Porter Jr. So I will pick, everyone pretty much knows who I'm going to pick. I'm going Jalen Green just because in everyone's mock boards who I've looked at, people are much smarter than me. Jurg himself told me he'd probably go Jalen Green number 2. I'm going Jalen Green number 2 because Houston Rockets kind of need it all right now, man. And Jalen Green, he's most NBA ready. If he's not the most, he's the second most NBA ready player in this draft. And he just brings that dynamic scoring that if you put him next to Porter Jr., you're going to have a great pair of wings that could bring that offense you need. Honestly, just bring everything you need to this team.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's reports that Jalen Green wants to go to the Rockets, which I don't blame him because who wants to go to Cleveland, who I have right now. So the Cleveland with the third pick, I think before like I actually read into the articles, I was kind of wrestling on who would I want because they have Jared Allen. I don't know if they're going to re-sign him. Who knows what Cleveland's going to do? There's also Colin Sexton rumors. But you got Darius Garland. There's a lot of people I could go with here. I have to go with him because if I don't, it's off. I'm gonna go with Evan Mobley from USC, I believe. He's so fundamentally sound. He's got a nice shooting touch. Defensively, he's very good too. I don't know. Again, we don't know what they're gonna do with Jared Allen, but I think because there is potential for spreading the floor with him on the court, I think it adds a dynamic to that offense. And plus, they're gonna want to obviously replace Kevin Love. So I'm operating as if the Cavs will put Jared Allen at the 5 and then Evan Mobley at the 4. Again, the fit is a little suspect, but I think Evan Mobley is an intelligent, fundamentally sound player. I'm looking at his stats now: 16 points per game, 3 blocks per game, 2.4 assists, 8 rebounds. And again, the shooting touch is there. Like he has like a little mid-range game that again could expand. I'm a huge fan of him. People linking him to Chris Bosh, which I could see a lot. It sucks that he's coming to this team, but look, Cleveland, if they're accumulating these pieces, they're accumulating this young talent. I think the fit with him and Darius Garland, whether it's a pick and roll or pick and pop, could do some damage in the future. So I got Evan Mobley at 3. We move on over to Jurg, who has the Raptors pick at 4. Jurg, who do we got?
Solid pick, by the way, with Mobley. I think it just makes sense with we don't know with Jared Allen. Like, and it could end up being the case where they actually, I don't think they will, but they either tender qualifying offer him and let him go somewhere, or sign and trade, like something. If they don't think they can make it work, I wouldn't be shocked. It's Cleveland, so no, my bad. But like as you said, with the recent reports that Jalen Green wants to go to Houston, Houston's really looking at him. Like I think this is the likely order. Like I think our 1, 2, and 3 is more likely than not how it's going to go.
Locked. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you say yourself, Chris, the draft starts at 4. So who could I go with Toronto here? There's a lot of consensus from a lot of the mocks I've seen personally that it's going to be Jalen Suggs. And I love Jalen Suggs personally, and I will just say right off the bat, he is going to be my selection here at number 4. I just think like the kid is a natural born leader. Like if you're talking about those intangibles as well, I think, the guys we've said so far are more naturally talented. But I think in terms of the leadership, those extra qualities he brings, I don't know if there's a lot of players better than Jalen Suggs in terms of that specific set of just being ready for the next level for what it's going to bring to you. He was ready for college, being a freshman, to help get Gonzaga to the national championship game. Hit a big shot. I think it was the Final Four game to send them to it. The kid, if he had ended up playing football, he would have been the quarterback, and we know what it takes to be quarterback. From point guard and quarterback, like you need to be intelligent, and so that's why he goes to Toronto. Solid prospect there to build around. Fred VanVleet's more of a shooter anyway. Yeah, he could pass, but Jalen Suggs will be the more natural guard there. And they need to put whoever the guard next to Fred VanVleet's going to be, he needs to be a little bit taller. VanVleet's like, I think 6'2" reportedly. Suggs is about 6'4.5", give or take. So there's
NBA always be finessing those heights.
You're not wrong, but I think like didn't a year or two ago they said like they have to give the proper heights now. I don't know, but Suggs is a little bit taller. He could fit as the more natural playmaker. He'll grab the rebounds, everything, and that's the perfect selection for Masai Ujiri to have at number 4.
And the replacement of Kyle Lowry too. So there you go, the successor. James, you got the Orlando Magic at number 5. Who do we got, buddy? Talk to me.
So at number 5, after looking at the roster, I mean, I'm picking the Magic for number 8, right? Either way, my math's off right now, but you got the Magic picking at 8. So I figured right now instead of taking that big swing where you want, something, a project, which I feel like they actually have a lot of people on their roster currently like that, Mo Bamba being one of them, who I think he's going to end up not being good whatsoever. I said it right when he got drafted. I don't think he's a good player, man. I'm sorry. The best thing he did was create that song. That was about it. He didn't even make the song. He was just based on the song. But regardless, back to my pick.
He's not wrong.
I think it's every report I've seen so far, and I can't disagree with it because it makes perfect sense, is I'm going to go ahead and take Scotty Barnes with the
my
pick.
God. Wow. I'm surprised.
Let me explain first. I did my research too. Like Jurg did it. I did it too. He is a defensive guy, and right now, what the Orlando Magic don't have that I've seen my Brooklyn Nets have, I've seen the New York Knicks have up until this year, is they don't have an identity. So really, what you want to do is you want to get this guy. He's a great defender, has real great length, giant wingspan. He isn't the best shooter, but you can learn that, especially in today's league. And it wouldn't shock me if we see it 5 years down the line, he ends up being like a 35% 3-point shooter. And he has a solid floor, and that's what you need when you're picking this high. He definitely is going to end up being one of the best defenders in the league just because everyone I've heard and everything I've read saying the upside on this guy, his ball handling, his passing, his defense, he's got potential to be great everywhere. And if you pair him next to Jonathan Isaac, those two cause all sorts of problems for any offense they play.
The front court defense of Jonathan Isaac and Scotty Barnes is going to be an absolute nightmare. Because, like, I think the funny part with you picking that, James, honestly, this is like a throwback. It's going to be a throwback Thursday next week if they go this route, because everything you just said about Scotty Barnes is what we said about Jonathan Isaac when he was coming out. Like, honestly, aside from, I think Scotty Barnes was the better playmaker coming out personally, compared to Isaac. But, like, this is essentially like two of the same players. You know, they're going to be on the same team. I mean, it'd be interesting.
Orlando might give me a call after they hear this, bro. They might say, "Hey, come over. We need you, kid."
Chris, it moves on to you now with the 6th overall pick. Shock of a pick. We were both shocked there. I think we expected a different player, and I'm gonna guess that player is about to come off the board right now.
Yeah, so I mean, you have to go for this player if he drops the 6. I don't necessarily know if it's a steal, because I would have loved Scotty Barnes's fit with the Oklahoma City Thunder, but again, I think he's from Florida. I know he went to Florida for college, but I mean, he's gonna go to the Orlando Magic now, according to James. So yeah, I thought you were for sure gonna take Jonathan Kuminga at 5 because with the Orlando Magic, because they don't necessarily have that wing player that I think Kuminga could be. But I mean, you go Scotty, but honestly, you're getting a good player in general, and for the Magic, you just take the best possible. So
I thought about going Kuminga, but then like I said, when you're picking at 5, man, you don't really want to take a project right there, especially when you're picking later at 8. That's when you can take your
that's
chance
fine.
at the project.
That's fine. But yeah, okay, number 6, OKC. I'm going Jonathan Kuminga. So Kuminga isn't necessarily my favorite prospect, but he does have top 5 talent in my opinion. I think the Magic, obviously, if they go Scotty Barnes, which I have read reports that they're very interested in, I've also read reports that the Raptors are interested in Scotty Barnes. But Kuminga he's very raw, but the talent is there. He could attack the rim. He has a high ceiling in terms of just like a shot creator. Stats now: 16 points per game, 7 rebounds per game, 2.7 assists per game. I think the playmaking could also increase as you get to the pros. The defense is a little shaky on the defensive side, but definitely has the tools to be a good defender. He has the athleticism. He has the build for it. I think Jonathan Kuminga, he's going to be a scorer. Like, he's going to be a scorer. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going to need help on the offensive end. Especially, who knows what they're going to do with Kemba Walker, but you're going to need those cornerstones you need a help. You're going to have to start building cornerstones, especially next to Shai. And I think Kuminga could be that guy. So you would have your 2 and your 3 locked in. So right there, you have your young cornerstones who could both score. So Kuminga, again, not necessarily looking at fit here because the Thunder, they need talent, bro. They just got players from like the YMCA playing for them. And honestly, I like their head coach. They have like a fun, exciting team. They tanked on purpose this season, kind of backfired, but you backfire, you drop to 6, but if you get Kuminga, who in my opinion, top 5 potential, could be one of the best players in this draft, that's a steal in my opinion. And you get someone that you didn't really expect. So Kuminga at 6, Jurg, you're at 7 now, which means you got Golden State. Talk to me.
I have pick number 1 for the Golden State Warriors, and really, it's tough here because I think Golden State, you could go a couple different ways with this pick. A popular name I've seen with this selection at number 7 is Davion Mitchell. And I know he had the phenomenal year. I believe he was the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year this past season. Phenomenal, to say the least. But my thing is that, do you pick a guy who this was his one shining moment, his one season in college coming out? I'm not necessarily concerned about him being like that 4-year player, that senior. That part doesn't really bother me per se. But it's just the idea of this was his main year. Like, yeah, the defense cannot be... I don't think we can really question a lot, but he's also 6'2", and that kind of limits what you could do defensively. You're going to strictly be a 1 and 2 defender, and I think for Golden State, if you're going to go with defense on either of these picks, which I would lean towards a specific player with their second pick, but I don't have it sadly. I think if you're going to lean with a defender, you need a guy who could go 1 through 3 or 1 through 4, and I don't think Davion Mitchell is that guy. So instead of going with the defense here, I'm going to go with a little bit more offense. Get a guy who could potentially give them a little bit of an offensive punch off the bench. And his shooting's going to improve a lot by, getting to learn with Steve Kerr, Steph Curry, and Klay Thompson, who's going to be coming back. But the kid from UConn, James Boatnight, out of there. He could be a potential dynamic scoring guard really in this league. I think sending him to Golden State, he's going to learn a lot immediately. And the thing with Golden State, like one of these two picks, kind of like what James mentioned with Orlando, when you have 2 first-round picks, or in the case of OKC and Houston, you have 3, at least one of them needs to be like right now, right this second, he needs to be in your top 8, top 9 in the rotation for the upcoming season. Like he needs to have that ability. And James Bouknight is that guy compared to, not, I shouldn't say compared to, he's there's still some pretty good names, like I said, but just offensively, what he could do, I think he could contribute a lot quicker than a lot of these other kids can with what he could do. Shooting, again, it needs to be touched up a little bit, but he's going to Golden State. He's going to get plenty of shooting help there with the coaches they have and the teammates he has. So I think it makes sense to pick him there.
Okay, good pick. James, number 8, Orlando again.
Man, I can't even lie. I'm panicking right now because Jurg just took book night. I really wasn't hoping he did it. But with number 8, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go reach for this, the project that I was telling you guys about. And I am, with this pick, I might shock you guys. Don't kill me if I do. But I am going to take Isaiah Jackson, freshman from Kentucky. The reason I'm going to take him is, like I said, I already got my guards. I got my wings. I'm going to go ahead and build that front court. This kid, he's a top shelf athlete. He's an elite shot blocker, rim protector. Mo Bamba doesn't work out. Boom, you slide him right in. He could run the rim. He could catch the lobs. He's kind of limited offensively, but that's all right. Like I said earlier, I'm trying to build right now a defensive culture. And, hey, we saw it right here with the Bucks. Defense wins championships. So he got the fundamentals, and he's great there. So you can work on the offensive side. If honestly, he doesn't, then you get just a great rim protector and a rim runner. And that they just need talent. And this guy brings athleticism that can match that defense I'm talking about.
All right, a dude that
Wow.
was mocked to be in the late first round, maybe early second round, and you take him in the top 10. James, man, you're hot take, dude, man. Jeez, dude's bringing fire to this podcast.
Feeling it today.
All right. I get it. All right, that's fine. Now, I'm up next, 9th pick with the top elite franchise Sacramento Kings at number 9. Man, I could go a few routes here. I could go Keon Johnson, which I thought that the Magic were going to take, who I think the Magic might actually take in the real draft. But then again, would Keon Johnson fit with all those? You have Tyrese Halliburton, you have Buddy Hield, then you have Harrison Barnes. Jalen Johnson feels like such a Kings pick, but there is a possibility, like Whiteside, we don't know what's going to happen with him. Rashawn Holmes is going to, rumor that he wants $20 million a year, but I'm going to go with arguably a top center in this draft, Kai Jones, at number 9. That's right. Kai Jones is a masterful player in transition, and when you're playing with De'Aaron Fox, you have no other choice but to play in transition a lot. They like to play fast. I know that Tyrese Halliburton will also feed him. Of course, you have De'Aaron Fox. I think he is a lob threat. He'll be a shot blocker. He is, I think, a very dynamic center that obviously could help you on defense. And there is shooting potential in which, again, that will help you on the offensive end. He's just an insurance policy if you lose Holmes, which is like another additional reason. I understand that you want best player available, but and he makes the job easier for a De'Aaron Fox, especially. You could expand his role as a playmaker, especially with Tyrese Halliburton, who's an additional playmaker. And the Kings need defense, man. Like they need a lot of things, but defense is one of them. One of the major things they need. So Kai Jones, I think, is a obvious pick here. Could have gone one of those wings there, but I don't know. Kai Jones just feels like the right fit to me. So Jurg, you're at number 10 with the New Orleans Pelicans.
I did not expect both Kai Jones and Isaiah Jackson to go this early. I did not at all. I'm not saying they were my pick. I should put that out on the front end, but I'm just saying in general, I didn't expect either of them to go at this point. So this makes it interesting. I could go in a couple different directions here. I did not think this guy was still going to be available come this point on my board. I think the Pelicans, if you're going to address point guard at any point, go address point guard in free agency. Find a way. Like, this kid is available at this point. Strong feelings would need to be had for you to not pick him. I'm going with Moses Moody here at number 10. Just a bucket getter. Kid is just going to be a bucket getter, which they need more scoring there from the perimeter when you have Zion. If the idea is Zion is going to be your inside punisher, you need guys to score from the perimeter. Moses Moody can do that. He could get you a couple assists here and there, not a pure point guard by any stretch of the imagination, more so going to be at the 2 at this level. But that's, again, like I said, free agency, figure it out with the point guard. You bring on Moses Moody. Kid could shoot. Like, he's a pure shot creator, and you need perimeter shot creators on this team. So I'm gonna go Moses Moody. I'm gonna say I did not expect him to be available at this point. I thought one of you guys were gonna snag him up.
Okay.
I really did.
Now, James, you got the 11th
I thought about
pick.
Moses. I thought about Moses Moody at the 8, but then I was just like, you know what? That's too many guards. But with the
I feel
11th
like,
pick,
yeah, and by the way, Jurg, with him with the Kings, I don't know. You got Buddy Hield there too. It's just plays too similar to him. I know you can't have too many shooters, but I don't know. The Kings don't operate on logic, so.
that means the Kings would have drafted him. All right, so with the number 11th pick with the Hornets, they needed a little bit of perimeter defense. They a little bit of front court. So with this pick, I'm gonna go with the kid from Michigan, sophomore at 6'9", Franz Wagner. He's a 6'9" combo forward. He's your typical 3-and-D guy. As you guys could tell, huge defense guy. He could defend multiple positions. He shoots at a high level. He's not going to be a star coming in at all, but he's going to be one of those great role players. Think of someone like a Joe Harris, except, bigger, could play defense. And that's exactly what the Charlotte Hornets need right now, especially with LaMelo. You just need someone who could take a little bit of pressure off for him on the defensive side and just stay open whenever he's driving in and create those plays.
Now, with the 12th pick, I have the San Antonio Spurs. Now, Spurs who look like they're in a rebuild, but because of the Spurs, you never know. So, 12th pick, could go a lot of ways here, but I have to be in the perspective of the Spurs. So, I could go Jalen Johnson, which I think would be a good pick. I could go Corey Kispert. I'm going to go with... is he a point guard? He's like a point guard, a point forward because of his height.
I know who you're going with. I know who you're going with.
I'm going with the Australian playmaker Josh Giddey. I was thinking about it. I was like, there's so many players that the Spurs could pick, but this just feels like such a Spurs pick. Josh Giddey of the NBL. Pop loves those international prospects. He kind of fits the Spurs style of play. He averaged 11 points per game, 7.5 assists, and 7.4 rebounds. Now, LaMelo Ball came from the NBL. I understand LaMelo Ball was who he was before the NBL, but I think this dude is kind of like a Swiss Army knife in terms of doing everything. And I think the playmaking ability is going to entice the Spurs a lot more because he's basically a 6'8" forward who could pass the ball beautifully. With the Spurs style of play, that poetry in motion, he kind of fits into that. You can plug him in right away. And again, Pop usually gives these rookies like a year to kind of, figure things out. And I think he'll do it with him. But Josh Giddey, I've seen mocks where he goes top 10. I can't see other teams kind of picking him because he just doesn't fit those teams. But I think he is a match made in heaven for the Spurs. His shot could use work. The mechanics aren't there. Jurg, I've talked about this before. The mechanics, huge believer in them. He doesn't necessarily have them, but maybe the Spurs can work on them. Again, he does a lot of other things really well, and I think those other things the Spurs cherish.
Oh yeah. I'm with you in terms of shooting mechanics. I'm a firm believer in, like, when you're coming in, your shooting mechanics need to be at a to extent where even if it needs to be worked on, like, is there something there at least? Is it release point? Is it just how you're going up with the shot? Various things. And I think Giddey, there's some potential there with his shot, like you said, and it just needs to be worked on. And who better than Greg Popovich to get that potential out of him? So fun fact about him, by the way, his dad played in the National Basketball League in the NBL in Australia, and his mom played in the Women's NBL in Australia. So
There you go.
the Giddey family runs the Australian basketball scene. So that kid, he's got some potential there. And like you said, tall, like he's the definition of a point forward. He's got to put on some muscle if he's really going to play like the 3 a lot, but he's a point forward for sure. So now with my pick, the 13th overall pick, lucky number 13 for the Indiana Pacers. How ironic, considering I have called this team snake bitten in the past. So with this pick, I could go in a couple of different directions, really. So Malcolm Brogdon and Karis LeVert are both good at the guard spots. TJ Warren, when he returns, he fills up the 3. Miles Turner's still there for the time being, so there's that. Sabonis locking down the 5 spot. So I could go 4 here, but I didn't expect this guy to fall down this far. With the 13th overall pick, this kid's a winner, won a national championship this past season. I mentioned before, Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. Fits like this feels like an Indiana Pacers type player, an Indiana Pacers type pick over here. The upside may be a question, but I just think in terms of fit, in terms of his base floor, he'll be a contributor right away. Davion Mitchell feels like the kind of guy the Pacers would like to get at 13. The kid won in college, like I said, length. He's going to guard the 1 through 2. Maybe with how it is in Indiana, if they help him out, Brogdon can handle the 3 because he's the 6'5" guard. Let Mitchell deal with the 1s and 2. It all depends on who he's out there with, but I just think overall this is a very good thing. And also, you could run a 3-guard lineup with him, Brogdon, and Karis LeVert. So I like that as an idea. So I'm going with Davion Mitchell here at number 13.
All right, James, you have 14.
I'm going to go with Blue Devil, Mr. Jalen Johnson at 6'9". Reason I'm going to go with him is because he's a forward. Jurg doesn't look too happy about that pick. Looks like I didn't get his guy. It's all right. But I was thinking it was either between him and Chris Duarte, who I was thinking would be a perfect fit off the bench because that guy's 3-and-D. But Jalen Johnson, kid's young. He started off in Duke hot. Yes, he ended up being a little shaky, and then he just ended up quitting in the middle of the season. But he's still a great athlete, great forward, good size. He shot like 40-something% from 3. And even though it's a small sample size, he's someone that could end up being special in this league. He has everything to end up being special. And people forget that entering the year, he was actually projected as a top 10 pick.
Not a bad pick there. Like I definitely heavily consider him for the Pacers pick personally. Not who I thought you were going to go with at that selection, but just add some more offense, add some youth there, add some athleticism, which they kind of need. Like when you look at the forward spot for them with Draymond, do I really need to say anything about his athleticism right now? So Jalen Johnson is definitely a stark contrast from him there.
Don't keep the people guessing here, Jurg. Who did you think I was going to take?
Just personally, I thought you were going to run with Keon Johnson because I went with the offense with Bouknight, and then I thought you were going to go with the defense with Keon Johnson personally.
Yeah, well, I like to shake it up.
All right, Chris, the next pick is yours.
15th pick, I have the Washington Wizards, who had
this is interesting.
A very on and off season,
to say the
least. Yeah, I don't know. They have a lot of needs, especially on the defensive end. But then there's Chris Duarte, who's the prototypical 3-and-D player. But they do need defense. I'm going to go with him. I'm going to go with Keon Johnson. I'm going to go with Keon Johnson at 15. Again, this dude I think is the most athletic player in the draft. So I think you pair him up with Russell Westbrook. It'll be very exciting, very fun, very fast pace. Westbrook could facilitate for him. Definitely would, give an interior threat. Again, he has a high motor. He could cut. He's very good in transition. He adds basically an element to their style that they desperately need, which is defense, which is the main reason I'm picking him. The shot could use work. He's not the best shooter, but that's something you could work on later. Right now, you kind of accentuate his strengths because he's such a fast-paced playmaker. So I think when you play with someone like him, and then when you have the attention that Bradley Beal could create for you, since he'll garner a lot of the attention, he'll have more space to work on it. So to work on the shooting. So I think it's going to be some growing pains, but I just think it makes sense the most. Defense, transition, the fast-pacedness, the athleticism is going to be huge. So I'm going to go with Keon Johnson. Maybe not the best fit, but I definitely think it could. It's a project, but it'll be one that works out at the end. So Jerry, you got 16 right now.
Yes, so I have the second of Oklahoma City's 3 first-round picks here. So I'm going to be going off of what Chris did with the first one. So with the first one, when they got Jonathan Kuminga, that right there, you get yourself your wing of the future potentially. If he grows anymore, if he just gains muscle, and he develops a 3, maybe you could play small ball 4. But the wing is relatively set. I still think front court is a need for OKC. Maybe that'll be addressed with the third of the first rounders they have. But I still think need is definitely something that could be looked at for them. With this pick, I could go in a couple different directions with them. Honestly, when I look at it now, there's a couple players that you guys just took, like Jalen Johnson or Keon Johnson would have been pretty nice here. I'm not gonna lie about that. So when it comes to OKC, like I kind of have to go with kind of like I said, honestly, maybe this is the more project pick with them. I thought this guy was going to be selected potentially at going back to the Kings pick because I've seen some people actually mock him to Sacramento at number 9. I've definitely this is a late lottery or just outside the lottery kind of guy they're going to go with. And maybe he could develop into the stretch 4 for them. Maybe he plays the 5. Who knows? But Alperen Sengun, who played in Beşiktaş in Turkey this past season, the kid showed that he played so well in the Turkish professional league. He showed that he has a stroke. He could shoot the three. He's got some low post to him. Obviously, the low post isn't the way to go nowadays, but just to have like that potential on like a few plays here and there. Like, okay, see, there's so much unknown with them. You can go with a kid you could develop again. He's listed as center. He's only 6'9". Maybe he's going to end up being a 4, but even if he becomes a stretch 4 who's a pretty good rebounder, he could shoot, right? And I like his shot. I'm not saying his shot's perfect. If you need to work anything out, like that's up to the team. His shot looked pretty good from what I saw on film. So I think, you put him there, an offensive player, him and SGA. I think it could be some little fun pick and pops right there. And then Jonathan Kuminga will be the bully inside when he gains more muscle, and Sengun will be just that shooter from behind the arc. So I'm gonna go with him at number 16.
Well, I'm really glad because I thought you were about to go with the guy I was going to go with, which is why I got really upset.
You were concerned, man.
I was genuinely upset. I thought you picked him. That would have been like 3 for 3 of all the picks you've taken before me. But regardless, I'm going to go for the young kid coming out of Spain. I'm going Usman Garuba. Yes, it's a little bit of reach, but when you look at this Memphis Grizzlies roster, they have a couple guards. They have a lot of forwards. Realistically, though, they don't have any legitimate centers behind Valanciunas. And if this season showed us anything, it's the end is very near for Valanciunas. So they do have him listed as a center, which is a little questionable because he's 6'8", but he's a great defender. He's physically ready for the NBA, and due to the fact that he was playing with Real Madrid's senior team, I'm pretty sure he played with their Spanish national team, and he's only 19, like I said. He's a veteran at a young age, and usually when you get those people, look at Luka Doncic. I'm not going to say he's going to end up the next Luka, but they are miles ahead of where they're projected to be. So it's going to be a minute till he becomes a legitimate starter, which is why I'm going to go ahead and take him while you still have Valanciunas, but he potentially is going to be a great center / power forward to play the defense coming off the bench.
I think that's a pretty good pick for center, James, because I think he needs that year or two to develop, to get used to things in the NBA. And so Valanciunas, while he has the end of his career, you just let him ride it out. Like, let him learn, let him develop. And then 2 years from now, when you have, Ja's one of the top whatever point guards in the game, hopefully Jaren Jackson Jr. becomes the player we all think he can be. Like, that's a nice little core right there. That's a pretty good pick.
Thank God you didn't take him.
All right, now this brings me to 18. I have Oklahoma City's second their third pick now. Yeah, third pick in the NBA draft. So again, I could go a lot of directions here, but you know what? I don't know what's gonna happen with Kemba Walker. And if anything, he could be a backup, a serviceable backup, and then you could groom it into their starting point guard. And I think he would fit so well with Shai. I'm going to go with someone who has top 10 talent, but because of his health, it's questionable. I'm going to go Jared Butler.
Yep.
That's from Baylor. Jared Butler is, looking at the tape, I instantly fell in love with him. He's one of my favorite players in this draft. I'm very heartbroken for him that, again, he's cleared to play now by the league, but this could scare a lot of teams off. He has a heart issue, but 3-point shooting potential. He can play defense very well. Shot creation is there. I think scoring potential is at a high ceiling. He would play so well with SGA. You got Pokusevski, you'll have Kuminga, and then Jared Butler, and now Shai. That's a solid young core right there. And I think Jared Butler could be eventually, his ceiling could be a 20 points per game if everything, works out for him health-wise. It could be a 20 points per game type of player. But again, he's a little undersized, so that might affect his defensive capability, but he does play defense. It's just that he might not be able to play defense against like the oversized guards. Might not look too good on defense against the oversized guards. But again, the shot creation is there, the shot making is there, just the 3-point shooting is there, and I think that's huge. Especially next to Shai, who Shai could score and he could shoot the three, but he's not like that's not his forte. Like 3-point shooting isn't Shai's forte. So I think if you have a gunner like Jared Butler next to him, it would be hugely beneficial. But again, I love his ceiling offensively, defensively as well. He could do everything in my opinion. He's basically a Swiss Army knife. 4.8 assists per game is what he averaged this season. Yeah, that's not the best, but I think when you put him next to talent like Kuminga, like Shai, and if, who'd you pick for them, Jurg? Did you, 16?
Alperen Sengun.
Yeah, there you go. So you create a lob threat with him. I think his playmaking abilities will shine even more. So I love Jared Butler with this pick, and I love OKC what they're doing now if they pick all these players. So Jared Butler's at 18, which brings us over to 19. Jurg?
Jared Butler fully healthy, he wouldn't even be available at that point. He would be a lottery pick
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
Most outstanding player of the year this past Final Four. Kid has shown it. Like I'm honestly, I'm kind of on your wave, Chris. Like I think he could become a 20-5 kind of player in the league.
Mm-hmm.
I really think he could. He's talented. He's got some qualities to him that you like. Yeah, if it just wasn't for like the medical scare, and yes, he's been clear, but of course that's going to be monitored. Like if it wasn't for that, if he didn't have it, I'm telling you, top 10 pick, maybe even like
Okay.
legitimately
No, I agree with
the
that. I
kind
agree
of
with that.
talent he could have. So we're moving on from there. Wouldn't have been a bad pick here for the Knicks. I have one of the two Knicks picks here at number 19.
Don't fuck
I
this
could
up,
go.
Jurg.
I could go in a couple different directions here. The Knicks need two things. They need a playmaker. They need a shooter. So
You need
essentially,
everything.
yeah, which one am I picking here so that Chris can get the pick of the litter with the second pick? Because Chris does have the second Knicks pick. I think James knows who I'm going with here. Um, I'm gonna go with Emmanuel Quickly. When they picked him, the thing with Quickly is that he's more the Lou Williams type of guard off the bench. He's gonna be the scorer. He'll get some assists here and there, but he's not a pure playmaker. If I'm talking about pure playmaker, I'm gonna go with a kid who's up there in assists per games in the nation this season. Played in the SEC in college. Sharif
I hate
Cooper
you.
out of 3 for 4, baby. Sharif Cooper out of Auburn. Here is my selection. The kid just has natural skills as a passer, as a floor general, as a playmaker. You love it. And if the Knicks don't go after Lonzo Ball potentially, if they like make that decision right now in the offseason, hey, we're not going to go after Zoe, then Sharif Cooper wouldn't be too bad. Now, my thing with rookie point guards is they need a grace period. So if they do go with him and they don't get a veteran, I think like this is the thing, Knicks fans, you got to go easy on this kid. I know y'all don't like doing that, but you need to go easy on this kid early on because point guard and center to me are the two toughest positions to transition to from college to the pros. Look at Bam and DeAndre Ayton. It took them until year 3 to show off who they are. And I think handling the responsibilities you have to as a point guard, that's another way. So I think Sharif Cooper here would be an excellent pick for the Knicks.
I love it. I love it, Jurg. I really do because he is the best passer in the draft from what I've heard. He's very polarizing to a lot of people. I think he's an undersized guard, God-given playmaker, but the shot could use work. It took me a while, but I'm officially sold on Sharif Cooper. I wouldn't mind him. I also wouldn't mind if you took Trey Mann in this with this pick. But look,
Heavy consideration as well. Like it was really a toss up between the two of them.
okay, that's fine. That's fine. But I do like the pick. That him and Mitchell Robinson could do some damage in my opinion. But yeah,
Yeah.
solid pick, Jurg. Thank you. All right, 20th pick now. Atlanta Hawks. James, who do we got, buddy?
This guy is not going to be saying thank you to me after that one.
We got panicking. That's what we got right now. We're working on it. We're here. We're talking. We're fighting in the war room. Go ahead. Keep talking about that last pick real quick.
So I'll just say, generally speaking, like, let's talk about with Atlanta here, Chris. Like, who would you like? We're thinking of what James could do here. What would you go after if you're the Hawks here, Chris? Because you just made it to the Eastern Conference Finals off of this run. John Collins is a restricted free agent. You may lose him. Do you go for the insurance policy of going after a power forward here if there's one that catches your eye, or do you just kind of beef up the depth on this team, generally speaking?
I go for a backup point guard in this one. You have
That's what we're looking for. That's what we're looking for.
You have your wings. You could, I guess, DeAndre Hunter is good enough defensively to play the 4, and maybe you could slide him. Gallinari too.
Dun, 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 dun. The pick is in.
All right.
And with the 20th pick, the Atlanta Falcons are going with, it's a little bit of a reach, but thanks, Jurg. We're going with Miles McBride, guard out of West Virginia.
Wow.
Because we need a backup point guard. He's going to be able to fill that role. We're not looking for a stud here. We were looking for someone who could continue the playmaking after Trae Young gets off the court or if he gets injured like we saw. This guy is the next best assist guy I panicked to look for. Once again, it was a panic pick. Stop yelling at me. He's a great defender. He has excellent scoring ability. And, he's exactly what they need off the bench because once Trae Young's off the bench, really, who's the facilitator on that team? I'm not too worried about John Collins either.
Fair point. No, yeah, I think 4 would kind of be a stretch. Interesting with McBride. Like, I have seen him in a couple mocks, like early second, late first. So to see him go to 20, like, I think you're going with straight up need there. If your mindset is the skill set, like, that's kind of a pick your poison. Like my mindset is this, and I think we'll see what Chris does here with 21. But like 20 through 30, you can go one of two ways with your pick here. You either go with someone that has high potential and a low floor right now, or a high floor, maybe the potential is kind of capped to an extent, but like what they're going to be. You're either going to go with somewhat proven or a project here, and that's just how it is with late first. Essentially, once you get out the top 20, that's what it goes to. So definitely interesting here. McBride, he would need some work on like the other assets, but if you're talking about just like hitting a guy right with the passes, he's top 3, top 4 in this draft. In that, honestly.
I honestly, with the way the Atlanta Falcons, listen to me already in football mode, with the way the Hawks are built, though, that's really all they need off the bench because they have scoring in every position off the bench and every other starter. It's just we saw when Trae Young wasn't playing or when he was playing injured. They don't know how to create offense without Trae Young because he is the offense. So you need someone who could be able to step in and basically just say, hey, go where you're normally at. I'll figure it out from there.
I was gonna say because you said Falcons when you said it, James. I wanted to make the jokes like, "Wow, you're going backup quarterback with the 20th overall pick here. Look at you, Green Bay Packers."
Jesus.
That was
all right.
Just saying they could catch it. By the way, Aaron Rodgers, a part owner of the Bucks, has a championship ring. So I just want to mention that.
Aaron Rodgers, good friend of the podcast.
I might have messed up with this pick though because do they really need offense? Because Knicks they couldn't figure it out even when the offense wasn't clicking or anything.
So speaking of the Knicks, the 21st overall pick of this draft is the New York Knickerbockers.
Yeah, I just know that the Nets don't have the amount of chips that the Knicks have, but that's a story for another time. But I have a Knicks pick, thank God, at 21. Now, you went with Sharif Cooper, Jurg. I love the pick. Yep. James, I actually for the Hawks, I would have gone Trey Mann, to be honest. I don't know if you've done research on him, but Trey Mann, I think, crafty, shot maker, potential's there. I think Trey Mann has a high ass ceiling. And honestly, if you didn't pick Sharif Cooper, Jurg, and for example, if you went with the player that I won now, I think I may have considered Trey Mann with this pick. But again, you took Sharif Cooper. Enough word salads. Again, Knicks need a point guard. They need wings. They need shooting. I'm going to go with a player who is rising in the mocks and who I really love a lot, Trey Murphy III from, I believe, West Virginia. I'm going to fact check that now. Yes, West Virginia. Or no, sorry, just Virginia.
Just Virginia.
So,
just Virginia.
Yeah, just Virginia. Quintessential 3-and-D player here, whether it's spot-up shooting or catch and shoot. The shooting is there. Again, the defense is there. This is a wing-heavy league. And the Knicks, you don't know what's going to happen with Reggie Bullock. With Trey Murphy here, you could spread the floor for Julius Randle and for RJ Barrett. 3/5 of your lineup is Mitch Robinson, Julius Randle, and RJ Barrett. Your point guard and your small forward need to be snipers. Because the shooting, you're kind of like, yeah, they could shoot a 3, but they're not like consistently great at 3. And I think Trey Murphy could fill in that need. Again, 3-and-D. The fact that he could take on the defensive tasks, I think he's a Thibodeau player, prototypical Thibodeau player. But for me, it's the shooting ability that kind of, helps me make this pick. So I love the kid. I think he's going to do wonders. I think realistically, even if the Knicks do move up, I think there's a possibility, like say for example, they package 19 and 21, they move to like 15, 14, they could pick Trey Murphy. That's how fast I think he's rising. So I'm going to go with Trey Murphy in this one. And so Sharif Cooper and Trey Murphy with the Knicks picks, beautiful.
I've definitely seen him, high on a couple boards. I think the highest I've ever seen him pick was like 13, maybe 13, 14.
I could see that.
If the Knicks do want to, they could. He's a 3-and-D player. He could play the 3 if you slide RJ over to the 2. With he's more of a shooter. With that duo of picks, like you said, you need a sniper. Sharif Cooper would need to fix his shooting, but I think just the ability to pass it off to those guys. And I think RJ's 3 is going to get better this season. So yeah, there's a lot of potential there. But I mean, you kind of just mentioned it, Chris. I think, James, we work with a lot of Knicks fans at Off the Ball Network. I think if these were the 2 picks, James, I think Knicks fans would be pretty happy with it.
Yeah, but I don't want to see our Off the Ball Network people have.
Nah, but definitely send it to them. Oh, Lordy. Oh, that's funny. Okay, so moving on to the 22nd overall pick and the Los Angeles Lakers here. So former defending champions now. They had a tough first round exit, in part mainly due to injuries to LeBron and AD. The 2 of them are going to get a full off season now to rest up. They're going to be just fine. So it's really all about who are you taking to support these 2. And I gotta say, this pick became a lot harder because I was expecting a different player there, Chris. I was really expecting a different player for you to take right there.
What, Duarte?
So yes, because Duarte is one of the picks I'm highly considering here with the Lakers. I think his shooting, his playmaking, but the way I see it with Duarte, I think Duarte for the Lakers, he'll be what they wish Kyle Kuzma was on a more consistent
Yeah.
basis. Straight up, like when I see Chris Duarte, I'm like, you know what? That's Kyle Kuzma if he actually cared more. That's honestly Kyle Kuzma if he cared more. Like a little bit of a height difference, but who cares? So that's who I was considering, and I'm still very much considering him, but I didn't expect this kid to still be here. And I wish free agency would happen first, because I wish I knew what the Lakers were going to do with the point guard spot. I really did. But I think I got to go, as much as I like Duarte with this pick, I got to go with this kid because he's still on the board here. I got to go with Trey Mann out of Florida for the Lakers. Bumps and bruises may not exist much longer after tonight's draft. For anyone that Trey Mann out of Florida.
Another panic
Just-
pick.
So I got you, James. Trey Mann is a shot creator and a shot maker in terms of both for himself and for his teammates. You know, just coming out, he's going to be very intriguing. While I know a lot of people are going to point to the fact that LeBron needs to have the ball in his hands, I think you could get really creative here. Like I said, you need to bring point guards in at a pace, and I think what the strategy should be for the Lakers, the idea is that you get a veteran starter to put with the starting unit. You let Trey Mann handle the bench unit and overlap the minutes where there's a little bit of time with him and LeBron, him and AD. But I think overall, like, Trey Mann would be just a dynamic guard selection here for the team. Like, he's just so talented at this point. And 22 is kind of low. Like, I have seen him go in the 20s in some mocks, but I've also seen some mocks where he goes in the teens as well. Like, that's how talented he is. Like I said, I debated between him and Sharif Cooper with the Knicks pick. I did not expect at this point for him to be available here. I really got to say I didn't expect that. So I'm going to go with Trey Mann. You know, the plays he's going to help make, like, he's going to shoulder a little bit of that load for LeBron. And I think it would just be a great pick here. Like, the kid's talented. Like, just straight up, the kid is talented.
All right, so with our third panic pick of the 2021 Somewhat Sports NBA mock draft.
Round one, by the way.
Round one, we are going with Joshua Primo of the Alabama, right? Alabama.
Roll
guard.
Tide.
Roll Tide, roll. Reason we're going with him is because, once again, it was another panic pick. Thanks, Jurg. But he, from what I saw, the very little bit of Alabama I've seen, he showed some great offensive game. He showed he was more than just a spot-up shooter. He got some combo guard skills. And I already picked earlier, Jalen Green. So I figured, why not put another guard there? Because, let's be honest, John Wall, he needs to get out of there. And also, he's actually the youngest draft eligible prospect there. So that just adds a whole another layer where he's going to be a long-term project, essentially. And as much as I just insulted John Wall, he's still one of the best passers in the league. So he has a lot of starter level upside for a whole long run. And if you can be patient, I think it'll end up paying off.
Good contrast of styles there. You have Cooper, who's definitely, like, he can attack, but he's more the pass first. Then you have Jalen Green, pure, like, the kid can just, we didn't talk about it much with the selection itself, but, like, we know the talent Jalen Green has. He's going to take it to the hole. He's going to shoot it. He's going to take up shots. Like, Jalen Green, when he goes to Houston, he's going to get a lot of shots early on in his career. Like, we're going to see his offense, you know, the mechanics and all that. Not saying he's bad mechanically, but I'm just saying, like, the little things about his offense you're going to see in full display in year one for him, because, like, he's going to get the ball in Houston straight up. He's going to get plenty of opportunities to do whatever he so chooses. So we go with, let's just assume roles here, shooting guard with Jalen Green with the second overall pick for Houston. 23rd overall with James right there. We're going to go with the kid Joshua Primo out of Alabama. So now with the 24th overall pick, Chris, you get the third and final Houston pick of the first round. I think, ironically, if I'm not mistaken, you also got the third OKC pick. So something about Chris hitting threes today is just going in his favor. So, Chris, with this pick, who you going with Houston?
Perfect segue. Now,
I'm a natural.
you're natural. You are. I can't believe Chris Duarte's fallen this far. Did someone pick him, or am I bugging out?
Not yet. I
No.
praised him, but I didn't pick him.
No. The Rockets are a little weird because they have John Wall, and he's like the blocking point in terms of just like going full rebuild. But having Jalen Green does not hurt. The thing with Chris Duarte is that he's 24, I believe, 20 or going on, I don't know. So he's very old. He's one of those players in the draft.
Yeah, 23, 24. Yeah.
And I know he's a quintessential 3-and-D player, but I might as well go with another three-point shooter in this draft that's not 24 years old, actually. I'm going to go.
I think I know who you're going with.
Oh, man, I don't want to spoil it. But I'm going to go. He's a young sniper. I'm going to go with Bones Highland, actually.
Oh,
Who
that's a good pick.
Bones Highland is the best shooter in this draft. I think he's a legitimate sniper, catch and shoot, off the dribble, anything. He could do anything. In terms of just shooting wise, and I think you put him next to John Wall, who John Wall is still a good passer because he likes to transition, kick it out. I think he could benefit a lot from John Wall. And again, I don't necessarily know the style of play that the Rockets are so used to, which is like this 3-point shooting. It could still be there, and I think they had a very weird year. But I think Steven Silas, who I think is mostly known for his offense, I think when you have a sniper with like Bones Highland, it adds a new and much needed dynamic to your offense. Again, you have Jalen Green, who could be one of the best players in the draft, who kind of do everything. If you give him a sniper that you could heavily rely on, like Bones, who could actually also attack the basket as well, because I think the threat is there from the 3-point shooting. I think you get a lot of people, and I think that'll make his transition game a lot more easier. Attacking the paint will be a lot more easier for him because I think the threat of just shooting a three will scare a lot of people, and it'll be hard to kind of keep up with him. I think Bones Highland is the way to go. So, best shooter in the draft, in my opinion. You got to take him. You got to take him.
That's a good pick. I was heavily considering him with my next pick. So that's a good one right there. I can't deny it. So I don't have any repeat picks in terms of teams here, but I do get repeat picks in terms of city. I got the Los Angeles Clippers. Right here, I believe this season or next they're going to be opening their arena in Inglewood, so good for them. They're going to get to open it with a nice and shiny team that may or may not have Kawhi on it, so we'll see there. But they will have the 25th overall pick player from this draft. Now, I could go with a couple different things. I know we outlined center as one of the things. By the way, a shout out SomeWhatSports Instagram page for the offseason previews we're doing for all the teams. Right there, we did the entire Western Conference so far. We've started with the East, and when it comes to the Pacific Division, the center was a need for the Clippers that they could potentially look after. Zubac and Ibaka, yes, they have the both of them, but just some injury depth in case. If there was a center that I really liked here that was still on the board, I would go with personally. But just I look at it like a lot of the guys have already been taken here that you guys would have gone for. Like there's still some intriguing prospects, but just not enough for myself personally to maybe even take a shot. So instead, I'm going to attack in terms of guard/wing. Like, there's still some interesting names left on the board here. Like, James already put his hand up. James is already pissed off. He thinks he knows who I'm going to pick here. Who am I going to select here? You know what? Actually, I'm going to go. I'm not going to go with who you think I'm going to pick here, James. I'm going to go with someone who a lot of people has as like an early second round pick, but this kid was just a pure bucket getter in college in his freshman year so far. I believe all SEC freshman team did pretty good in the SEC tournament. Averaged 23 points per game in his lone season so far. I'm going to go with Cameron Thomas for the Clippers. I think they could potentially lose Reggie Jackson. It all depends on what his price tag is going to be. So you need a guy to come out there and immediately take the role of just a pure bucket getter. And I think Cameron Thomas can do that. Like I said, 23 points per game in his freshman season. If there's one thing you can't just teach, it's that natural scoring ability. And if the kid could score like that at the top NCAA level, like there's a chance he'll be able to potentially do that transitioning over to the Clippers. And he'll get some chances too. Again, the guard spot's pretty wide open for them. And he gets Paul George to work with as well. And Paul George, we saw in the playoffs, like he was consistent this past season. And I think with Kawhi most likely is going to be out to start next season, I think from what we're assuming, then there's an opportunity for that second guy to like really come out for this Clippers team. And early on, like I'm not saying he'll do it for a full 82 games, but early on it could be Cameron Thomas. So I'm running with him at 25.
Thank God, because if you went like 5 for 6, sure, I was gonna lose it. All right, so I'm gonna go with the guys you guys mentioned before. Honestly, I feel like this is a perfect team. There was only like 5 teams who I think he'd fit perfectly with, and this is one of them. I'm gonna go ahead and finally take the older guy and Chris Duarte from Oregon. Yes, he's the oldest prospect in this draft, but he hit 40% from 3 last season. He can make shots basically almost every level. And honestly, it's the perfect fit with the Nuggets because when you have Jamal Murray, Jokic, Michael Porter already, being featured in this offense, he can focus what he does best, and that's strictly being a 3-point shooter and playing defense. And drafting him is good because in the event that Will Barton doesn't come back, that wing position is looking a little thin. And we saw that coming into the playoffs after Jamal Murray got hurt. Yes, Jamal Murray's a guard, but you have a couple of those combo guards where you could have pushed into that point guard role. But once you do that, that's it. Everywhere else, you're thinned out. So, like you said, Jurg, I would have loved to have gone backup center here for Jokic, because realistically, they have no good backup center whatsoever. But all the guys I would have taken have already been taken. So I'm going to get the guy who I think could immediately step in. Yes, he's only going to be coming off the bench, but he's going to have an immediate impact on realistically any championship caliber team he joins.
And for a late first round pick to like come off the bench, that's not bad, honestly. Like if you're telling me, because usually it is championship contenders that pick at this point, you're telling me if your first round pick, you're gonna grab a guy that could be in your like 10-man rotation on day one.
He's probably gonna be 7th, 8th man. Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if he's 6th man for them. Wouldn't be shocked at all.
Yeah, like he's like, I think the best point you bring up, Jamal Murray's out to start the season for them. Barton opted out. He's probably not going to be back. They traded Gary Harrison, the deal for Aaron Gordon. Like, the only thing they really needed in the front court, and I'm assuming Paul Millsap is going to be back, the only thing they need in the front court is that backup center. Like, yes, maybe a backup wing for Michael Porter Jr., but that, I think it's easier to figure out in free agency. I think another scorer here, and I know Duarte would essentially be that, but just a wing player in general, kind of take off that scoring load. Like, he's going to be the number 3 guy on that team early, and honestly, he'll be the top guy on that bench unit. He will. Him and Monty Morris, like that's going to be solid.
And that's exactly why I took him, because when you saw what happened in the playoffs, it was really just showing their depth. Well, minus obviously you're missing Murray, who's a huge chunk of your team, but it was showing their depth was a little questionable once you lost one of your starters. So championship teams, as we've seen with Phoenix, and even though they didn't win the championship, but we saw with Phoenix and Milwaukee, who did win the championship, both teams were deep in it because Milwaukee lost Dante DiVincenzo, and Pat Connaughton stepped right up. It was almost like it didn't make a difference. Imagine if they did have him. They would have been dominating this whole finals. But regardless, that's why I'm taking the kid from Oregon.
Chris, the next pick belongs to you. So
Right.
The next selection in the draft, the 27th overall pick, the Brooklyn Nets will have this selection. So now, and this is going to be the last time they have their own first round pick in a while, I think. Well, there's a couple pick swaps with Houston there. So getting a first round pick here, you get to add to the big 3 that they have. Brooklyn, like they're kind of with the Clippers and the Lakers. They're going to go into this offseason. They need to kind of fix up that roster. They need to like just fill holes. There's a player here that I think, if me and Chris are on the same wavelength right now, I think there's a certain player I'm thinking that the Nets could pick here that has a lot of upside for this team. Like rookie season, he may not show out a lot because I think he needs the development, but like a lot of upside with this kid. So I'm going to be interesting to see who you run with here, Chris. I'm assuming if the selection is in, I'm hearing the music somewhere, maybe in my head. The 27th overall pick will be made by Chris, and the pick for the Nets will be...
I decided to forfeit this pick because they don't deserve this pick, so we'll move on to 28. I'm just...
You know what? As the Nets delegate, we decide to forfeit the pick as well, and we decide to donate to our charity, and we're going to go ahead send it to the Red Cross so they could deliver this pick to the New York Knicks because God knows they need it.
That's fine.
Oh,
that's fine. Just as much chips as
so-
the Nets, though. But yeah, so
with this pick,
I would have, if there was a center here, I think I would have taken him because the Nets, if there's one thing that they do need, it's I guess a big man, quote unquote. But there's not a lot available here, so I think
I will say this really fast. I thought Isaiah Jackson or Kai Jones would have been available at this point. I thought one of them would have been here.
Both of them I think would have been, yeah, maybe, but I don't know. Maybe at least one of them. But I'm gonna go ahead and pick Zaire Williams from Stanford. Now he had a little bit of a up and down season. Again, I think a lot of people did in the collegiate level because of just like COVID protocols and all that. But I think Zaire Williams has a very high ceiling. You're welcome, James. He shot like 29% from 3, but the shot mechanics are there. I believe he has a high ceiling as a shooter, in my opinion. Shot creator, could be one of the best in this draft. I think he could be one of the best in this draft. He's an underrated playmaker, but he's also an underrated defender. I think his length will actually help him defend a lot of positions in the pros. But I just, if you watch his highlights, I think you buy it as a shot maker and shot creator. He can get open himself. He can shoot over a lot of people. I think he is there as a potential, like, the ceiling is there as like a 20 points per game type of score. Now, you're not going to do that with the Nets. But again, you could take your time into developing with the Nets because you're not going to be thrust into the spotlight right away because you're gonna have KD, you're gonna have Kyrie, you're gonna have James Harden. So he's gonna have time to develop. You're gonna be because of his ceiling as a scorer, being next to arguably the best scorer of all time isn't a bad thing. So he'll have a lot to learn from. The fact that I see the possibility that could be a great scorer next to three of the best scorers in history, I think will add to his development. And I think it'll raise his ceiling, to be honest. But there's other intangibles there that makes him an enticing pick. So I think
Yeah.
27 with Zaire Williams for the Nets is actually a steal. So you're welcome.
100%, James. Like, I know you're probably going to be fine with whoever they pick, but Zaire Williams, like you said, Chris, yeah, he struggled, but I think he's one of those kids that college was just not the way for him to go. Like, I know he went there for a reason, but James, like the guys at the network have talked about this because they've seen the Gilbert Arenas video. There are just some players that in high school they're great, and it may not show it in college, but they're more like they're NBA players more than college players. And I think Zaire Williams on the right team could become that. There's some real defensive potential with him. His shooting does need a lot of work, but like kind of like my idea with the Book Knight selection for Golden State earlier in our mock, like it. And Book Knight, of course, is a better shooter coming out than Zaire Williams. But if he needs to work on shooting, like those guys are going to teams where shooting is like one of the musts, and there's not going to be any pressure for him early on because there's KD, there's Kyrie, there's Harden. Like the most playing time he'll see will be the nights where those three guys sit or like two of the three sit. Like those will be the nights where he gets those heavy minute games. Like he'll predominantly be just working with them, learning from them. And his head coach, by the way, like in a lot of cases, you can't say this. Steve Nash is one of the greatest like efficiency shooters there is. So literally, there's 4 different players that he could learn from before he even gets a shooting coach. So come on now, I think that's a really good pick, James. Like I'm sure you're fine with that pick. I had a different player in mind personally, but I'm sure you're cool with Zaire Williams.
Yeah, like you guys been saying, he'd be a long term project. You wouldn't even expect to see the kid for the first 2 years. Realistically, he's plan B in case something happens / trade chip.
Right. Oh yeah. I think honestly,
Yeah, who do you want to trade for, James? Who do you want to trade for, bro? Want Bradley Beal, maybe? Add him to the team?
Hey man, we wouldn't have to really trade for anybody because they just sign over here. People want to come here, unlike some other, other spot over in New York.
You got it, baby bro. Go ahead.
With the Lakers, the Clippers, and the Nets, I think those 3 teams, like the first round picks, like we're projecting some pretty good players for them. But at the same time, like all 3 of those picks could also be trade chips, like for a deal like this offseason to even get a third scorer for either the Lakers or the Clippers, or for the Nets, it could be like a more NBA ready player, like a defensive presence on the interior, or just another playmaker. Personally, like I was kind of thinking JT Thor here for the selection. I think I could be wrong. I think he was the SEC 6 Man of the year. The kid showed some potential with range as well. The thing in college is that while the NBA has advanced so much, and in the NCAA, a lot of the bigs still primarily run on the inside, some with the mid range. So in terms of these guys like Kai Jones with Isaiah Jackson and with JT Thor, like you need to look at the tape of their shot to see like could they like stretch out to the 3-point line in the NBA. And from what I've heard, a lot of people think JT Thor can potentially do that come a couple years in his career. So that's why I would have thought. And also like he's got that potential. He could even be like not a Swiss Army knife like in terms of like a lot of positions, but he could play the 4 as well, kind of stretch it out a little bit. Kid is young, athletic, all that stuff. So could have been a pick there potentially, but again, that's not a bad selection at all especially for the future with this team, because all 3 guys could be gone after this year. Moving on to the 28th overall pick and the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm going to keep it simple here. I'm going with shooting with this team. This team needs more shooting. Whether it's Simmons and Embiid still or just Embiid after this, they need more shooting on this team. So I'm going to go with a guy who, 4-year player in college, made it to at least one national championship game. I could have sworn he made it to the national championship game his freshman year. I guess he didn't, though. I guess I was confusing him with another guy on the team that was on the previous team. But I'm going to go with Corey Kispert on Gonzaga. He's just
still available?
Yeah. That's the shock. I've seen a couple mocks where he was a lottery pick. And my thing is that I can understand it because in today's league, like we talk about this mainly in free agency, but look at what Joe Harris got paid. Look at what Davis Bertans got paid. Look at what Duncan Robinson is going to get paid, like just for 3-point shooting. So it's actually pretty believable that a lottery pick can go on a guy who's like number one thing for sure as a shooter. I'm sure we all heavily considered him at one point or another. I think I just took him away from James again. So I'm sorry, James, for that.
No, we're good. We're good this time. I
Okay.
was thinking him, but we're
Okay,
good.
just,
We're
just
good.
just making sure. But yeah, I think he's just a pure shooter. Some size as well. He'll grab a couple of rebounds. I think in his career, like definitely 40+% from the 3-point arc. And I think even his 2-point field goal percentage, like his field goal percentage, like either stayed the same or went up every year in his career in college. And if it stayed the same, it didn't go from like 36 to 36. It went from like 43 to 42. That's not bad. So Kispert is just going to be a pure shooter. Like him, Danny Green, Korkmaz, like just surround Embiid with and Tobias Harris with shooters. Just put shooters around them. Get get a playmaker point guard, get a defensive player there, another one to go with Thibault, and go after, like, go for the chip. So that's how it is. And trade Ben Simmons, please, for his safety to be hidden from the Philadelphia people. Just
Bro, I should have paid
with
attention more. If I oh my god, if I realized Kispert was available, I would have picked him with my Knicks pick. Jesus,
right,
bro.
I that's who I thought you were going with at the Knicks pick. Honestly, that's or him or Duarte. Like I thought it was him or Duarte with the second Knicks pick. I really did.
Typical Knicks. Go ahead, miss your draft pick.
With the 29th pick in our mock round one here. We are doing only round one, by the way. The Phoenix Suns just made it to the finals, lost in 6 to the Milwaukee Bucks. They could use a couple different things here, James. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. What are you going to value more than anything else on this team here with this first round selection?
Well, like we said earlier in the show, I'm a strong believer where I think Chris Paul will leave Phoenix. So with this selection, I'm going to go ahead and select Jaden Springer, point guard coming out of Tennessee. He's been hitting 43.5% of his threes last season. He has a knack for scoring a bucket, and he's a defensive bulldog. He has that mindset where actually he would have been a great pick for the Knicks as well. But, once again, the Knicks miss all their picks.
Oh, Lord.
He doesn't really have one elite skill. He kind of he's very good all over, which is why a lot of scouts have been a little questionable about him. But I feel like that's kind of the perfect fit for Phoenix right now because, because just due to the fact that he is, I guess you could say he's a project because he doesn't have that one elite skill, is the way their system's built. You could throw him in there and then he could figure out his role and grow into a role that you want him to become and really hammer down on becoming an elite skill, whether that be him passing the ball, him being a shooter, or him being that defensive-minded bulldog.
Not bad. And also a player that I think you could have considered with the Atlanta Hawks pick earlier or even with the Houston pick. He's good.
But I wanted assists, Jurg. I wanted assists. I had a plan. I pulled the trigger. You stole the other guy. I went plan 2.
I sold the other guy twice, or like 4 or 5 times in this draft, according to it. No, not a bad pick at all. Like some defensive potential there too, by the way. Like, and I think with Booker, like all due respect, he's a fine defender, but he's not a great defender. So I think you need that defensive presence there to go alongside with him in the backcourt. Not a bad pick at all. And like you said, whether Chris Paul stays or goes, like I just think he's going. James Springer, like he's not going to start right away because I think if they let CP3 go, Cameron Payne is probably going to start. So you get the offense from Payne, you get the defense from Springer. Pretty good right there, and just give Monty Williams some young talent to put in. Their first round pick from last year, Jalen Smith, didn't get a lot of playing time this season, so like they're gonna hope he takes a big jump here in year 2. And I think with Springer, it could go either way. Like he could have some flashes, or it's gonna be a thing where he gets some time, but year 2 is gonna be the pick for him. But again, like you said, last 2 picks of the draft, like these are the teams that almost made it to the finals or did make it. In the case of the Suns, like you'll take that. Like this is just a young talented player, good base level, but the potential. If they unlock it, it could be a really good pro. So with the 30th and final selection, so the Somewhat Sports 2021 round 1 NBA mock draft is coming to an end here. The Utah Jazz with number 30. Chris, our fearless leader, you get the final pick here, and you get to make the selection for the Jazz. The Jazz out in the second round after holding a 2-0 lead, lost 4 straight. So just like the Phoenix Suns, the top 2 teams in the West went out the same way, just in different rounds. And I'm sure Phoenix much rather prefers losing in the finals than in the second round. But Utah, you could go in a couple different directions this year. This is a team that we kind of mentioned in the, I guess it'll technically be the last video that's out on the YouTube. Like I mentioned as saying maybe potentially missed out on their opportunity here. So what do you go here with Utah? Do you go with some upside here in like another year or 2? Or is there someone here that you think will contribute right away? Let us see with the final pick of round 1 here. Chris, for the Utah Jazz, you will be selecting.
Yeah, so Jazz, they're weird because I think they have a lot of, everyone kind of, their lineup is basically set, but you don't know what's going to happen with Mike Conley. So I'm going to go point guard here. I'm going to go, hold on, so I don't butcher his name. Ayo Dosunmu from Illinois. Yeah, I'm going to go with him for that pick. I actually like this pick for the Jazz. He is an aggressive in transition. He could attack the rim. Not the best shooter from three-point range, so he's going to have to improve on that, especially for the Jazz, who are like a three-point shooting team now. He's aggressive in transition. He's aggressive in the paint. Again, I think the playmaking, he's improved every year, to be honest. I think this year he averaged 5.3 assists. The year before was, and the years before was 3.3 assists. So he's averaged from a playmaking standpoint, but he also averaged 20 points per game. So I think the scoring is there. It's going to be hard to fill in for Mike Conley, but I think he has all the tools. 6.3 rebounds as well, which isn't like, that's not bad. So I think you have a De'Aaron Fox light type of guard here who is pretty quick, who's aggressive, who could attack the paint, and is a decent playmaker with rooms for improvement. Now, I'm not saying he's Aaron Fox exactly, but he's the Aaron Fox light in my opinion. So yeah, I'm gonna go with him on this one. Again, you need an insurance policy for Mike Conley too. So, and also because the Jazz heavily emphasize 3-point shooting, I think that'll improve if he's on this team. So yeah.
That's a good selection right there. I think with him, honestly, if you're going to replace Mike Conley, like this kid kind of has a little bit of Mike Conley in him. He's going to get some playmaking. He's going to attack the rim. He's got a little bit of defense to him. He had the infamous photo after, I think it was the Big Ten championship game, where he had his jacket on. He like was holding the trophy, kind of like Kobe did after one of the Lakers like three-peat championships. So there's that as well. Like the kid has some swagger to him, understands the game, respects the game, all that stuff. Very good selection right there. That I think, wow, that you're talking about a late pick there, like a steal. I think that could be a steal right there. Like he some time there, obviously with him, some potential. Even if you keep Mike Conley, honestly, like just have him learn from Conley for 2 or 3 years. That's an excellent pick. I think that is the best possible pick to end off our draft. So like we said, the Somewhat Sports NBA Round 1 mock draft comes to an end, gentlemen. And I think we did a pretty good job. I think, if you take a look at all our picks, I think there's logic behind them all. I think there was, we're attacking with talent, with needs, with what teams like could use next season. I think quite a few of these guys, even some of the late picks, could actually step in and produce for their respective teams a lot earlier than what most would expect from a typical rookie draft class. I think this 2021 draft overall, a lot of people are wondering like, what is the upside here? But I think like there's a lot of really good pros potentially in this draft of what we've got to pick here. So that ends the draft for tonight, and that was quite the phenomenal selections that we made, boys. So I just want to thank all of you for joining us on this one. It was beautiful. All right, the first ever episode we did was last year's mock draft, me and Chris, and now here we are, not a year later because it's not technically been a year since the last draft, but all this time later, we get to do another one, and we welcome James on this one. James, how do you think this went? You had fun, right?
I had a great time, especially since I knew Chris butchered the Knicks picks. But other than that, thank you for having me, guys. It's always a blast. It's always good stuff. Good stuff. Miss Dame over here. We only been on one episode together, but it is what it is. I don't mind being the third one.
Dame appreciates that comment, but I wouldn't be surprised if it gets lost in the editing translation right there.
Could be.
But Chris, obviously, you close it out. You're the fearless leader. How do you think this went? How do you think we did? And take us home, man.
I thought it was a phenomenal draft. Look, anytime Dame is in here, it's gonna go splendid. Yeah, there were 29 picks. One of them didn't go accordingly because it's Brooklyn Nets. No, I'm just joking. We had 30 picks, 30 solid picks. This is one of the
best pick.
Yeah, good one. This is one of the best. This is one of the deepest drafts I think we're gonna have in a while. I think there's a lot of talent. I think there could be lottery talent picked in the teens, to be honest. In like the later picks actually, if like they pan out how I think they will. So again, one of the deepest drafts, one of the strongest drafts. If I paid attention, Kispert would have been on the Knicks, but I didn't pay attention. That's on me. But that's it for this week. James, thank you so much. Plugs, what do you got to shout out?
Please, guys, follow us on Bunts and Bruises Podcast on Twitter. Follow him, Jurg K40. Follow me at Bars Talks. Follow me on Instagram, Bars_Talks. We are now on Spotify, Apple, YouTube. Please, guys, like, subscribe, comment. You don't even have to listen to the whole thing. Just fast forward to the last minute. I'm okay with it. I just want your view.
Okay. Yeah. See, me being the loyal friend, I'm actually following all of them, so you're welcome, by the way. But it's an awesome listen.
I appreciate that. You could totally,
What?
Fast forward though, if you.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. It's a great show, guys. You guys listen. It's gonna be the best hour of your life.
Definitely is. Jurg and James do their thing. Two of the best in the business. So, guys, thank you so much for listening. If you listen all the way through, you could follow us on the socials medias. Instagram, we're at SomeWhatSports. Put a lot of cool shit there. I think Jurg plugged it in earlier. And check out our WordPress, Somewhat Sports, yeah. Jurg just posted his NHL mock draft 2.0. Solid, as always.
Just
Jurg,
the lottery, and Steve Yzerman today kind of backhanded me with a trade he made today. So already my 6th overall pick probably not happening in the mock draft.
It's all good, though. It's all good. Quality is quality. Greatness is greatness. So, yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. James, thank you so much for joining us. Dame, hope you never come back. And until next time, peace.